In Tragedy, a true crime podcast, we discuss missing persons cases, violent crime, and other sensitive topics that may be difficult for some listeners. Listener discretion is advised. Our show is a place where every story matters and every voice deserves to be heard. To support this podcast, you can subscribe at www.tragedyaTrueCrimePodcast.com for early access to new episodes. And join our Facebook community, Tragedy, a True Crime Podcast, for updates, discussions, and ways to support the families we feature. Welcome to Tragedy, a True Crime Podcast. I'm Elisa.
And I'm Michael.
As we sit down to record this episode, it's hard to believe that 1 year ago, Tragedy, a True Crime Podcast, began with a simple but deeply personal mission to create a space where victims are remembered, families are heard, and stories that too often fade from public attention continue to matter. Over the last year, we've had the privilege of sitting with families carrying unimaginable grief, unanswered questions, and the weight of learning how to move forward while still searching for answers. We've heard memories that made us smile, heartbreak that stayed with us long after recording ended, and a kind of resilience that continues to inspire us. For this special 1-year anniversary episode, we wanted to do something different. We wanted to return to some of the voices who trusted us enough to share their stories in the beginning. Today, we're welcoming back 3 families we've had the honor of getting to know over this past year, not just to revisit the cases, but to talk about something equally important, what life looks like now. Because behind every case file, every timeline, and every unanswered question are people living through the reality of what comes after. To the families joining us again, thank you. Thank you for trusting us with your stories, for allowing us back into your lives, and for continuing to advocate for your loved ones. And to our listeners, whether you've been here since episode 1 or you're just joining us, thank you for helping ensure these stories continue to be heard. And now, we'll welcome back Teresa Rogers, Ian's mom, Tabitha Kutke, Michael John Olson's niece, and Michelle McCroy, Cody Haney's mom. This is our 1-year anniversary episode of Tragedy, a True Crime Podcast, and the conversation continues. We'd like to welcome Teresa Rogers back to the show. Hi, Teresa. Thanks for being with us today.
Hi, y'all. How you doing?
We are good, and we are so glad to have you back on the show. And it's been a little while, and we know that there have been some pretty significant things that have happened in our hometown, in our search to uncover and find Ian. And so the biggest thing is that his work truck was located, and that was in November of 2025. Can you tell us a little bit about that experience and how you found out and just how that time was for you?
Sure. It was, I'm trying to think how I found out. I know I spoke with Detective Del Beato. I had called him. Of course, he was out in the field, with the truck. And then he called me back and had told me they'd been out there since like midnight the night before. But they really hadn't found anything. They'd looked, all around the truck but they hadn't, there didn't appear to be anything. Ian wasn't there. I was happy and I was sad. It was very strange to have that at the same time. I was happy they found the truck, and I was sad that Ian wasn't there, but then I was happy Ian wasn't there. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
Yeah, and we do know that they did a couple of days of searching in a pretty big grid area from what we could tell. And the sheriff's office did bring in some outside resources that are specifically trained in searching. And I'm hoping they kept you updated on that. And did they tell you anything about those searches or anything they found in the truck or anything like that?
No, actually, they said they didn't find anything in the truck. No keys, no wallet, nothing, not anything, no sunglasses. The windows were down on the truck, which was interesting, and we know it was stuck in the mud. And I had gone and gotten his things that were in the back of the truck out of the truck later, and the gentleman that I spoke with said that the whole inside was all mildew and everything because it'd been there for well approximately a year, and the windows had been down and the rain and everything. So no, they didn't say anything specific about the searches that they did. There wasn't any, there was no sign of Ian apparently. They didn't find him or his phone. They had a specially trained dog, I think, out there that searches for phones, which I thought was amazing, and horses as well that went out on the search. They went out twice, and after that, they called it off. They figured, if they hadn't found, anything as far as they went, then they probably weren't going to.
I think it is important to kind of help our listeners understand what that area looks like. So this isn't Florida like Miami, Florida, where it's, it is very thick, very treed. There's all these suffice it to say, this isn't an area unless you're walking on a dedicated road or a path. You're not just going to tromp around in there, particularly in August. There are snakes and all kinds of scary things out there, and it's not easy to get through.
And one thing that was really compelling to me is when you look at the map of this area, and we talk about this a little bit in previous episodes, but just as a reminder for our listeners, is where the truck was, you would hit a trail or road in any direction. So even if Ian had gotten out of the truck and didn't really know where to go, any direction he would have chosen would have led him to a road or trail that would have led him to civilization. This is not I know the police department originally reported this as this truck was in the middle of nowhere. And that is false. This truck is not in the middle of nowhere. The truck was found 0.23 miles. I think is what I said. I've double checked my math. But the point is off of Old Plank Road. And even if you took the longest possible route to the next trail, which was not a very good conducive area to walk, especially in August, it was less than a mile to the next road. Again, just as a reminder, one of the most compelling things for me is 1.83 miles. The truck was found from the phone ping that we've had on record since basically the very beginning.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Not far.
I guess I originally was like, oh my gosh, they only searched for 2 days. They should search for more. But when I think about then, this is just my own personal opinion, the terrain, I can understand how it's not going to be likely for someone to, whatever their vehicle gets stuck, then not just to stay on this kind of road that the truck was found on. It's unlikely that you would tromp in the other direction. It's just, It's scratchy. There's just so many, it's just not, it's very thick, particularly in August.
Yeah. And
you stay on the road.
Yes.
Exactly. I mean, and the one thing about that area that I'm not aware if it's been investigated or not. No, we've made several recommendations and several inquiries, but there are 2 sinkholes that are within reasonable distance of where the truck was found. And as far as I know, those have still not been searched. They're small,
Correct.
But I have the impression looking at the maps that at least one of them seems to be relatively deep. And so I'm super interested in eventually having someone search those areas. I know we've reached out, but we haven't had a whole lot of luck yet in getting that done.
There was a gentleman that contacted me actually. He has a dive recovery, not I guess a business, but it's a nonprofit. They were down, I believe, toward Miami, and just recently located someone in the Intercoastal Waterway who had been there for 20 years. He had, volunteered and said he would, they would come out and have a look. But he's just been extremely busy, and hasn't had a chance. And then there was another one that I got in touch with who has a YouTube channel. He also goes out and explores and finds cars and, those kind of people. And I received an email back from them, and they actually said that they were busy right now. They were up in Tennessee, but that they would be willing to come down and they have a sonar that they put in the water, under, not somebody who specifically dives, unless it's necessary. And he said that they would come down and have a look. So hopefully, I just recently emailed them back again, and hopefully I'll be hearing from them and somebody will come out and and have a look.
Do you have their names?
I do. It's Explore the Nug, Nug. I didn't know if I should put that out there.
No, it's fine. I mean, the reason I'm asking is
Okay.
because we're, obviously we've been in touch with two other dive groups. And if these guys don't really have the time, we have other dive groups that we're already in communication with.
Well, these guys, he actually, did he contact me, or I think he contacted me, or I may just briefly have contacted him, and then he wrote me back and said, "Tell me about everything," and then wrote me back after, when I wrote back to him. Um, I think they were involved. There was a missing couple up in Tennessee, and I think they were involved in finding those folks just recently. So, like I said, I've written him back, but I haven't heard back yet. But it seems promising.
Good.
When we first met you and we started speaking with you about Ian and his disappearance, it really felt like there hadn't been any media coverage really at all about his disappearance. And so we'd like for you to give our listeners an update on how that has changed since we first covered Ian's story.
Okay. Yeah, there really wasn't any coverage at first. And then after I talked to y'all, I spoke with Serena DeVanzo at the local TV station, WTXL, and she had Ian's story on. And then after that, I spoke with Ava Van Valen at the local WCTV. Then I spoke with Frank Gibson. He has a YouTube channel out in England, and I spoke with him. And I spoke with some other folks. They disappeared, those folks, on their YouTube, or I'm sorry, on their podcast. So there was, and then I spoke with y'all again, of course. And so there was a lot of coverage. Ava did about a 15-20 minute story, extra story, different from the news on Ian's disappearance. So there was a lot more after I spoke with you that it really got out, into the public. People were talking about it and knew about it, and felt really good.
Yeah, and then of course when his truck was found, that was all over the news, ended up at going to people.com. And one
Right.
thing I think has been really interesting, I follow quite a few of the local Facebook pages, and I know that people know about Ian now, which was really one of our biggest pushes, something we really wanted to do for you. And the reason I know people know about him is because just a couple of weeks ago, literally, I think 2 weeks ago, maybe even less, there was a report about someone's unidentified human remains that were found in the Tallahassee area. And several people were like, is this Ian? Maybe this is Ian. Oh my gosh, what if this is Ian? And, people know about him. People are wanting him to be found. And I don't think that's not where it was in the beginning. And so we're just so grateful that you were willing to come and speak with us, and that we were able to make his name a name that people now know and they're watching out for.
And you did. I don't think that any of the publicity or anything, the web page or, on the color page, that there's being in people.com. I mean, none of that I don't believe would have happened if it hadn't been for y'all doing what you do. So
yeah, we're a partnership, right? You're welcome. It's us offering and you taking the opportunity and building this relationship with us. So we are also thankful that you are walking this path with us.
Well, I think we're like family now.
I would agree with that. Yes.
All right. So Teresa, I also have the impression that, before we really got started in this, that one of the things you told us about was just the sheer lack of law enforcement involvement, communication, anything. You even had trouble even understanding which detective was on the case, which we found shocking. And so we started publishing the podcast. We started, obviously pushing a lot out through Facebook. And then we were also, between us and you, contacting law enforcement. And it's my understanding, even though he's not necessarily happy with us, which honestly, I don't care. What I care about is he's talking to you, and that's true, correct? And that's still continuing to be true. Yes.
Well, yeah, they weren't talking to me. I had no idea. And then, like you said, yeah, they did start talking and calling and let me know, the things that, they were doing. Fortunately, it seems like they've gone, back to, no contact, unless there's nothing, apparently there's nothing to be, to be told. So,
Well, yeah,
I,
I'll comment on that because I come from
yeah,
a customer service background. When I think about how I've managed my IT work, what I always tell people is no status is still a status. And so if they're not talking to you, I would say it's time to start making some phone calls again.
yeah.
We just got finished interviewing a guy named Lee Cook with a new case that we're looking at that's really more about victim advocacy.
Mm-hmm.
His daughter was murdered, and the person who
Oh,
did it is actually in prison at this point. So it's a slightly different type of case. But
mm-hmm.
he really has a phenomenal message and something that I think a lot of people need to think about. And this is actually one of the things I wanted to talk to you today is he said that if he had not done and his family had not done everything that they had done, it's very likely that this person would already have been out on the street again. And
Oh,
so
great day.
he talked about problems of victim advocacy. He talked about problems with the parole process in general, the
Mm-hmm.
communication around it, and in general that, the legal system is really tuned for the criminal and not for the
Mm-hmm.
victims and the victims' families. And so what I'm going to tell you is you've got to go in. You've got to be the annoying person. We're trying to be as annoying as possible. I'm sure even when we picked up the LaTanya case, they were like, damn it,
Oh,
these
no.
bitches again. I'm
Oh,
sure that's
trust
what
me,
they
you
were
guys are
thinking.
completely annoying.
Oh, yeah. And so with that being said, I want to really push that issue. And so if they're already not
Mm-hmm.
talking to you again, it's time to
Mm-hmm.
start getting on the phone. It's even time to start walking in the office. That's how we
Yeah.
got our appointment with them. They would not return our call. And so finally, me and Elisa are like, hell with it. We're just going to go in. We went in, we knocked on the door and said, we want to talk to the damn sheriff. And
Mm-hmm.
within 5 minutes, somebody was in that lobby. Now, granted, they didn't let us talk to the sheriff. Not
We
surprising.
never did.
We never did.
Mm-hmm.
But not only did they talk to us that day, but they scheduled a meeting with us in which we talked about the Ian Rogers and the Jody Kilgore case
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
where they were with it, what was going on, our role, how we could help. And do I necessarily think we got a ton out of it? No, except for they realized two things. They realized we're not going away. And
Mm-hmm.
two, they started talking to you more after that
Mm-hmm.
day. And so I'm just going to encourage you, if they've gone dark again, it's time to
Mm-hmm.
start walking in the office.
Yeah. And that's something I have not done. I have not walked in the office. I need to put my big girl pants on.
Get the big girl pants on and let's go in the office.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, in a sense, that now we are more credible to them.
Correct.
I actually
yeah.
got we got some information related to a case in Wakulla, not Ian's, a different one, and
Mm-hmm.
I called the our contact over at the sheriff's office, and they answered the phone when I called, and
Wow.
I said, I have this information, and the person said, whatever you have, I'm always willing to hear it. And I think part of that
Mm-hmm.
is because we have persisted and we
Mm-hmm.
physically walked in the door.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
And y'all are asking the right questions too.
Yes.
And you're not being like publicity hounds either.
Right. And that is definitely one of the most important things in our journey.
Mm-hmm.
And the more families that we come in contact with and support, the more we hear how grateful they are that we're giving them, like, unfettered isn't the right word, but an open mic essentially to speak about their experience and their loved one. And it's not like the media who may come and do a 30, I don't know, they talk to you for a couple hours and then it's 5 minutes and you're like, where's all the other stuff? So we feel like we're filling a gap.
And let's don't forget that the Ian Rogers case could possibly take backseat to the shoe bandit, evidently, in Wakulla County, which I still find hilarious.
The shoe bandit.
Well, shoes are very important, to a lot of people.
Or the worm grunting festival, which also
correct.
got a lot more media. So,
well, shoes and worms, Wakulla County. You're in Wakulla County.
Also fair.
Is there anything that you wanted to add to the conversation that we didn't specifically ask you about?
It seems that and in seeing other cases where either people have been, killed or missing, that if the person has a vice or, happens to be addicted to a drug or alcohol or something, that if they have those things, they don't seem as important to law enforcement. They're kind of put on maybe a second shelf, a second tier, because they have those vices. They don't mean as much. And sometimes that's kind of how I feel. I feel like, Ian had these issues, and maybe that's why he's not as important as as somebody who was missing and didn't have those vices, or an addiction or something like that. So that really that's something that I've been thinking about. Mm-hmm.
Hey, Tabitha, thanks for being with us tonight. We're so grateful that you're here to bring us up to speed on what has been happening in the search for your uncle, Michael John Olson. So thanks for being here.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So since we last spoke, what are some of the most important updates in the case?
I think there's a few. We have a couple new people on board that Paige has been working with, who've kind of been helping behind the scenes. And I think some more information like about what exactly they've been doing, but they've been reaching out to me, and I've been relaying questions back to my dad just about like Mike, if he's had any scars or any surgeries, his dental records, to be able to use that.
Yes, it's my understanding that this is a team of people who work to identify human remains that are located. So they keep like a database when the media puts out that there are human remains that have been found that are not identified, and then reach out to, anyone in the area who has reported somebody missing, obviously, even going back as far as when Michael went missing. And I think that's why they are asking to add to their database maybe a picture, scars, those kinds of things, so that in their search, maybe they can match people. That's what they're really doing, are matching remains that are not identified to people who are missing, and that kind of thing. So that is a good partner to have. And I know just in the past couple of weeks, they've been really active with asking questions and doing that work. So that is a good update to have. Yes.
Very grateful for everybody, and especially new people coming on. So also, we have sent an email out to Jim, who was the last person with Mike that night that he disappeared. And he's kind of been somebody we haven't really reached out to. We've talked to most, if not all, of the other guys and supervisors at the golf club. We specifically, my sister and I, have not reached out to Jim personally, asking for what he remembers from that night and some other things. And so we have reached out to him. We haven't heard back yet, but we're hopeful and excited for what he has to say about his memory.
And that's also just been within the last couple of weeks. I know we reached out like we did with everybody, right, to see who wanted to come forward and speak. And we also did not hear back. And so I think it's important that the family, meaning you all, are reaching out, because, who are we? We're a podcast. He doesn't know us, but he does. Obviously, everybody who was there is very clear on family members and their role in this. So we hope that is positive, and anything that you can share with us moving forward on that, I think is good, because you're right. Like, he is reportedly the last person to see Michael John Olson, and so he's definitely going to have a perspective that nobody else has.
Right. Yeah. And I think the last major thing that we've been focusing on since our original podcast with you guys was Mike's speeding ticket that he got in Fort Lauderdale, and kind of focusing on that, who he was with, what the ticket was like when he was there, and all the details kind of surrounding that has been very interesting. And I know you have dug really deep into that, and tried to get more information, which has been hard.
Yes, I did. I FOIA'd Fort Lauderdale, and then she told me that I needed to send it to somebody else. And anyway, the result, what I was trying to get was the actual ticket, the ticket, right? The citation number you all provided to me through some of the information that you shared with us. But I wanted to actually see the ticket and maybe get some dates and times and clarity, because there's a little bit of uncertainty as to what the ticket was written for, as well as reportedly there was someone with him when he received that ticket. And we have spent some time trying to locate that person. And the last name kind of varies throughout the information that we did receive from West Palm. So I did like a little variation of the name, and we thought I share it with you guys always. And Paige is great. He just called this person up just out of the blue and explained who he was, and she said, yeah, I heard it was really interesting that Mike died. And so I think Paige had this like moment, like his heart skipped, but when then you talk to her further, not even related, not our Michael, but completely just one of those weird random odd things that happened. So yeah, we are still trying to work on figuring out if there was a person there, because these are people's recollections from when the police were doing their initial report, and if the name is off in any way. But we're still working on that. What is it? No stone left unturned.
That is correct.
Is that how it goes? Yeah. So definitely, that is something that we are continuing to work on as well. And I believe also there's been some communication with you all, with the team, the law enforcement team down in West Palm, about property.
Yeah, I can't. That was probably the biggest thing. So I've been in email contact with the detective who's on Michael's case, and yeah, she's been great. Usually she responds within a day or two to my emails, which has been great because you don't always get that with the PD. So I've been very thankful for that. She has been working on trying to get a search warrant for a property down in Florida, and she hasn't been able to get it. And she can't give me really too much information. I keep trying to ask her, like, what can I give you? What can I help you with? And I don't know the process, but I'm hopeful that she will be able to get that search warrant, and that is kind of another lead that we can go with.
Yeah, and this is a continuation of something that we know had already happened with this same property. It is in the documentation that we received from law enforcement that there was a conversation about getting a search warrant for this property several years ago, and the state attorney's office declined issuing that. And that doesn't mean that we're going to stop, right? We're going to keep in contact. Right. And, maybe they just need one more something, or, one more piece of information to be able to go ahead and take a closer look at that property, which is plausibly connected to what did or did not happen that night.
I'm going to ask a dumb question. Has anyone just contacted Jim and asked permission to search the property?
No, I don't think so.
It might be a good thing to consider, because we don't know if Jim's involved or not. I mean, we just know he's the last person that's seen Michael John Olson. I'd be interested to know if he would, in the scope of trying to help find what happened to him, or at least eliminate possibilities. Sometimes just asking permission is someone who's innocent and not involved in something. They'll just provide that. And at this point, we have no evidence that he's involved. Right. So It may be worth asking the question. And to me, it's kind of telling too if he says, sure, absolutely.
Yeah, I did actually. I asked both detectives, the first detective that was working on Michael's case and this current one. I asked both of them if they would be willing to ask him themselves if they could search it. Because, okay, if you can't get the search warrant, could you reach out to him and just ask permission? And then if he gave permission, you don't need a search warrant, right?
That's right.
Neither detective has wrote back regarding that, yes, I'm willing to ask, or no, I'm not, or yes, I tried, so I have given them his information and asked them to do that.
Right, that's good.
Because we do believe that property is still owned by the same family
Yeah, we've been given
It's
no
the same.
indication
Yeah.
that's not, and any time the checks that we've done from a legal perspective still indicates the property ownership still within that family. Yes, and it's just one of those things. We don't know that anything happened there. We don't even have any proof that Michael John Olson went there.
Yeah.
But it's just one of those questionable spots. It'd be nice to eliminate it, just like we're eliminating dive locations.
That's right. And all the
Right.
lakes and those kinds of things. Yeah.
Which the talk of the water in the lakes brings me to another thing. I have also been in contact with the detective regarding different lakes and ones that ponds or waterways that are searchable and not searchable, and some of them are not searchable for whatever reason. They need, like, Sunshine State sonar, who's been so helpful for us, needs police to okay them to search these. Anyway, so I've been in contact with the detective, and they have pointed me to directors of the city to try to help get the okay or get the clearance of these. Like, they should already be cleared because they're used for drinking water. And so I've sent emails like asking for them to give me that information that these waterways have been cleared. If they're not allowed to be searched, then I would think that they search them to make sure they're safe because they're used for drinking water. So I just want that documentation. And the city has not sent me emails back with any information regarding that. So
yeah, and I know we keep talking about clearing a lake, and the lake in question is Clear Lake. That's the name of the lake, which is quite huge. I was surprised because, we went down there and took a look at several of the sites that are potentially associated with whatever it is that happened that night. And Clear Lake, there's a road that splits right through the middle of it. So there does seem to be some confusion as to if that lake has been completely searched or if there needs to be some sort of permissions because they don't just want people going in there because it's drinking water. But I hear your point, like, shouldn't you already make sure there's no cars in the lake that people are drinking water from?
Yeah, you would think you wouldn't want a car in the lake that's got gasoline in it, oils and all kinds of other stuff, I would assume. But the point being is it would be nice to know what their inspection schedule is and what is involved in that inspection. And because that would tell a lot. I mean, if they go through and they regularly sonar the lake and look for any discrepancies or any potential sources for contaminants, it'd be nice to at least know that's part of their procedure. But with them being quiet about this and not providing that information, it's not allowing us to eliminate it from the list.
There we go. Another eliminate from the list.
Yeah. And that's been exactly what it is. Like, I'm sure you, in my email, I said, I'm sure you check it often, yearly. I don't even know. But I just want the information of how you check it, when you check it, that sort of details. And it's been cricket. They don't even respond.
Yeah. And the other thing, too, to consider is I just can't, when you're saying that, I can't help but remember Bill McIntosh's interview with Adventures with Purpose. He talked about a number of locations in various cases where he would go over a spot and it took going over it at a particular angle before he really recognized what he was looking at. Plus, he also said that, it takes a bit of practice to where, he looks for cars so often that someone who doesn't do that all the time, they may see something that seems very nondescript and he will look at it and go, that's a car. And I've even seen it because I've followed a number of their YouTube videos. I've actually found a lot of their content they put out there is pretty fascinating, what their process looks like. And it is amazing how often that he'll first, hey, I think that's something. And they'll scan it one way, another way. And then finally he hits it at the right angle and go, that's a damn car. And that's what, prompts them to dive. And so it's one of those things that I also question, even if they're scanning it, do they understand what they're looking for versus a group of professionals like Sunshine State Sonar and Adventures with Purpose that do this for a living and know exactly what they're looking at when they see it.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point.
So it's almost like the coordination of the lead detective with the city to make sure that whoever is looking or scanning knows exactly what we're looking for and not just doing a cursory scan. I hear what you're saying. It's like these people are subject matter experts and they know what to look for versus someone who's just, like doing the whatever 2-3 year scan that they're doing. So that's a good point. Is there anything else that's happened since we've last spoken with you that we haven't had a chance to ask you about?
I don't know. It's been a while since we last spoke.
Yeah.
There's little things here and there. I think sometimes we'll go days, weeks without anybody on our team talking, and then all of a sudden somebody thinks of something and we kind of go back and forth. And I think Megan and I especially, and Paige, like we all really appreciate that. Like everybody knew who's come on throughout anything, these podcasts, or, even if it's a viewer who's listening to something and just like, hey, have you guys thought about this and stuff? I think that's always great and helpful and kind of keeps us moving and thinking.
Yeah, because you just never know what kind of, I don't know, maybe feels like a nondescript conversation that then something just comes out of it. It's like, whoa, this is a new way of looking at something, or something that we hadn't thought about that could make a difference. And I'm encouraged by the amount of communication that you're continuing to get from local law enforcement, because that's really one of the big things for us, right? Is making sure that you're in communication with them, making sure that we are giving you a platform to talk about Michael John Olson, and so that he is not forgotten, and then, making those connections as we have more listeners come and more people join the team.
Yeah, we really appreciate it. I know my dad and my aunt especially really appreciate it.
One thing that I've been really happy with, it's been kind of an interesting dynamic, or maybe just artifact of what we're trying to do by creating this platform, is in almost every situation, we are told the same story where it comes to law enforcement isn't communicating. And then after we meet with all these different subject matter experts, they've indicated to us that the only way to get them to communicate is you've got to be the person, the squeaky wheel that will not go away. You've got to apply pressure. So the other, kind of evidence that this is working, even though we have heard from people going, it's hard to sometimes listen to your stories because they don't resolve. And I'm like, yeah, they don't resolve because that's not the purpose. What we're trying to do, well, I can't say it's not the purpose. I would love for them to get resolved. But, the idea is to take any little bit of, details and try to push it forward and put that pressure that these subject matter experts tell us to do onto these agencies for these cases. And what I will say, almost consistently, every case that we cover, if we haven't accomplished anything, law enforcement communication has improved. And so, if anything, that is a big win in all of these cases, especially this one.
Yeah, I agree. I think you guys have pushed me and helped me and Megan, my sister, to reach out to law enforcement and like, what questions do we ask? Because I've kind of been on the like, I don't want to bother them. I feel like they're so busy, but like, also it's my uncle and we want to find him and we want answers. And so I think pushing and asking and sending emails with specific questions that I want answered is important. And I found that she is responding to me. So that's also really good.
Yep, I think it's a great win.
Yeah, that's amazing. Thank you for the updates.
Yeah, thank you.
And the last thing that we wanted to give you an opportunity to speak about is a tape that you sent us. And Michael did some work on it and we sent it back to you. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so it was so great. So we got the tape back from Michael, and he worked so hard to try to get something off of this tape. So this tape was found. I should go back. This tape was found in a box of Mike's things that was at my grandparents' house. And when my grandparents passed away, this box of Michael's things, just my aunt has had it, and we got it. So we found this tape. We're like, what's on this? Trying to find a tape player is tricky. So we sent it to you guys. You were able to clean it up and get it back to us. And it was actually what we believe is Mike as a little boy reading a book. And so it was sent back to me, and I was able to actually play it for my dad. I believe it was Thanksgiving, when he came over for Thanksgiving. I played it for my dad, and he had tears, being able to listen to Mike's voice, even if it was when he was a kid. And he's like, that's definitely Mike reading a book. And like, it brought him so much joy. And it really brings me so much joy. So we're holding that safe, really safe, keeping that, because that is, I think, the only thing we have of Mike and his voice talking.
Well, that's amazing, because I mean, when I first started going through it, it was, as I got closer and closer to a real voice, I had the realization, I'm like, well, there's no evidentiary value here. But then the more I listened, I was like, this is going to have a lot of sentimental value. So I spent quite a bit of time. I wish I could have gotten it cleaner. I would need better equipment than I have. I still think there's enough there to where if you ever send it in to someone who specializes in that, they might be able to tune it better than I did. I mean, I only know a little bit about that. I don't know a ton, but I'm glad I was able to get it to a point to where it still means something to someone.
Yeah, very special to have. So it's locked away in my safe now, and
Good.
it's in a good place.
Yeah, I
So
remember
we'll hold on
when
to that.
you were listening to it and you were like, what do you think this is? And I was a reading teacher for, I don't know, so many years. I'm like, this is someone reading. This is someone who is kind of just learning to read, because I could
Yeah.
tell by the pattern and sort of, the hesitation. I'm like, this is like, sounds like a little boy who's reading. And that's when we were like, wait a second. Because the tape did have his name on it, right? It said, that's why we were like, what is this about? So we're just really grateful that you were trusted that the postage system to get that to us.
That's right.
And get it back to you guys. So thank you for that.
My favorite part of the tape, because it did make me laugh a little bit. My favorite part was you can tell as a child exactly when he got bored and decided to go watch TV.
Yeah.
Because then it stopped reading, and I can tell he's got the tape recorder by what I can only say is a game show
It's
or
commercial,
something.
Something like that.
And so I was like, oh, okay, he lost interest. He wandered off.
I think also you could tell, like a little kid, he had the microphone right up to his lips.
That's right.
You could tell, like when a kid holds the microphone, they think they need it hitting their lips
Right
when
there,
they're
yep.
talking. That's exactly what it sounded like. But you could make out words here and there that he said, or a few little sentences. And yeah, so of all the things that could have been on the tape, honestly, I think that was the best thing that we could have found. So
I'm glad we were able to get to that point.
yeah.
Hey, Michelle, welcome back to the show. We're so glad to have you here. We're excited to hear about some updates and things that have changed. So thanks for being here.
Oh, it's great to be back on.
So since we last spoke, what updates, big or small, have stood out to you most in Cody's case?
Well, the newest thing that we have been able to, to learn is that Cody's driver's license was found. So that's probably our newest update so far.
What can you tell us about that?
The ID was found at a pond, but there's a significant difference in the miles. It's probably about 50 to 60 miles north of where Cody was last seen.
And what was the time frame from when he disappeared to when the driver's license was found?
It's been about a year and a half.
And was there anything else, like a wallet or a phone, or just the driver's license?
Just the driver's license.
Fascinating. Have you been in contact with law enforcement about this driver's license?
Yes, ma'am. Me and the detective from FDLE, we speak quite often. He's been keeping me updated with what they're doing with the license and how they're handling, how they're handling the license. But yeah, me and FDLE have been keeping in contact with each other pretty regularly.
And that feels like a change from the last time we've spoken with you. It seems like, from what I recall, you had a good relationship with Liberty County Sheriff's Office, but I don't recall you really ever speaking about consistent communication with FDLE.
Right. At that time, me and FDLE, we wasn't really talking. I was mostly in communication with Liberty County. But then I got a call from the detective from FDLE, and me and him talked, and he said that he would like to stay in contact with me more often. And I told him, no, hey, that's fine. I'm good with that. I'm glad to get that call.
Yep.
We have been speaking pretty regularly.
And we should clarify for our listeners, FDLE is the Florida Department of Law Enforcement. And it's my understanding that one of their functions is to come in and support some of the more rural counties with some resources and whatever they need when they're, working on investigation. So that's good. That's a good update. Are there specific details or questions that you have or that you feel are still not getting enough attention?
I still feel like we should be searching more. I still feel like we should be doing more on the ground searches. I know a significant amount of time has went by. It's been almost 2 years now, but I do feel like we should be searching more on the ground in different areas instead of just the one location that they have searched. because there hasn't been another on foot search in about a year and a half, probably.
And I think you're speaking specifically about the last place that he was seen,
Yes,
that was reported.
yes, ma'am.
Mm-hmm. Are you aware if they've done any searches or anything in the area where the driver's license was located?
I was informed that they took the canine dogs out there and the cadaver dogs, and they searched the area, and they didn't find anything.
So there was some due diligence there, because this is kind of a big find. It sort of reminds me of when Ian Rogers' truck was found, and then all the searching that they did around there, because this is a big deal. The wallet, the phone, one of his phones, driver's license, all those things. And we were led to believe that, I thought all of those things were, like, I remember, folded up neatly in the truck. So talk to us about where the wallet is, or what you know about that.
At this point, I don't think anybody knows where the wallet is at. When I contacted Liberty County, they said that they have turned it over to FDLE. When I spoke with the detective at FDLE, he said that they don't have the phone that Cody had, the iPhone 10. They don't have that or the wallet. So I'm a little curious there of where it went.
There seems to be a contradiction there, right?
Yeah.
Someone should have it. We had the opportunity to meet with some of our external partners several weeks ago with the Iris Foundation, and they were telling us about, it's called the Raplevin Law. And what this law does is it allows family members close to cases like this to formally and officially request their loved ones' personal belongings returned to them, assuming that they're no longer needed for the investigation. So I know that that is something that you are going to go ahead and formally request. And I'd be curious if the formal request gets a different response than maybe more of an informal request, because I feel like, if they don't need that wallet, then you should be getting his personal effects back. So we're curious to see what happens with that.
Well, the challenge here too is it's, at this point we have two different agencies that says they don't have it,
right?
Which makes no sense, because we know that it was picked up as part of the investigation.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Correct.
Yeah, which is why Michelle and I have discussed sending that formal request to both FDLE and Liberty County.
Now you'll force them to actually look in the bins and see what they have,
what they can
instead of giving you an answer that they just haven't confirmed.
Exactly.
Right.
Yes, exactly. Are there other updates that have happened as far as maybe some support from the community or anything like that outside of the driver's license that has happened since we started speaking with you and bringing Cody's case to the forefront?
Unfortunately not. There's been no more social media about it, other than what we do. There's been no more searches. Other than them finding the license, that is the only thing that has happened since the last time we spoke.
Mm-hmm. I do know that, lots and lots of people have been listening to the podcast, which is partially because of you and all of the sharing that you're doing and the relationships that you have with people in the community. And so, that is an important thing. I think that we have two things that we're really focused on here. One is giving families a platform to speak, and two is shedding a spotlight. Like, let's put a spotlight on this case so that more people are talking about it. And, as people in the community are speaking and finding things that, we wouldn't expect to find, like the driver's license, people know, because it's a possibility that if, you hadn't been willing to come on the podcast, somebody might have found his driver's license and just not even known it was important.
Correct.
Yeah. Sometimes I'll see people take a picture of a driver's license and they'll put it on like social media, hey, and block out the name. But I don't know that somebody would have thought about, I'm assuming whoever found it contacted law enforcement. Otherwise, you wouldn't have known that it was found. So I think part of that is because of your advocacy and your willingness to come forward. So we appreciate that.
Keep advocating for Cody until we find him. I will not stop.
And I know this because you also are very on Facebook. I think every month you post something. It's been this many months and I'm not stopping. And, of course, we are your partner in this. And we are here to support you in whatever way that we can to help us find Cody and figure out what happened to him.
Yes, ma'am, because that is my, most important priority to me right now is finding Cody, getting him back home.
Mm-hmm. Is there any other updates or anything that you would like to share since we last spoke with you that we haven't given you an opportunity to speak about?
I think we've, other than the license, like I said, everything that's been the biggest thing. Well, that's actually been the only thing that has came up that's new. But of course, if there's anybody out there that knows anything, y'all have a tip line. They could contact y'all. They could contact me. Just the smallest detail, may be the biggest detail.
Mm-hmm. We agree. You've been listening to Tragedy, a true crime podcast. Our purpose is to honor victims by sharing their stories through the voices of friends, family, and those whose lives were forever changed. If today's episode resonated with you, we encourage you to subscribe, leave a review, and share the podcast so these important stories continue to be heard. Together, we can preserve their memories and ensure their voices are never forgotten. If you have ideas for cases we should cover or questions about what you heard, you can connect with us through our Facebook group, Tragedy, a True Crime Podcast, on X @Tragedy Podcast, by email at tragedyaTrueCrimePodcast@gmail.com, or by visiting our website, www.tragedyaTrueCrimePodcast.com. Thank you for listening, and we hope you'll join us next time.